NBA basketball fans, welcome back to the NBA Playoff Banter podcast. We realize it's not the playoffs yet, but that's what the podcast is called, the NBA Playoff Banter. Usually we're knee deep into the playoffs. Obviously a weird start this season. So we have 1 week remaining of the regular season. Bunch of games this week. Most teams have 4 or 5 games left in just a 7-game stretch. Lots of back-to-back down the stretch. It's going to be interesting, no doubt about it. So today won't be as long a show as last week. Obviously, we don't have any kind of recap or preview of what the matchups are going to be this week. We'll get into that next Monday. We'll have a better look at it anyway. Once the playoff or the play-in start. But, like I said, we broke down a lot of the top teams on both sides of the conferences last week. So we're just going to kind of dip into a couple of items. Obviously, Steph Curry keeps going off. And if we're going to talk Curry, we got to talk Russ Westbrook, dude. Oscar Robinson, he's catching up to the Big O. Lots to talk about there. Philly, all of a sudden, in a pretty commanding lead. In the East, we'll talk a little bit about the potential play-ins, the potential matchups for the play-in games in the West. And now with LeBron out for a couple more games, did he tweak it? Did he re-injure it? They're saying it's not, the trainers are saying, well, he's good to go. But we all know sometimes your body is like, am I good to go? I don't know, but it does add drama if you look at the schedule they have as far as back-to-backs leading into it. We'll talk a little bit of the Coach of the Year, talk a little bit about the Milwaukee and Brooklyn series that happened, these back-to-backs. I really wish that they could find a way, and I know they can't do back-to-backs as many times as they did, as far as playing the same team back-to-back as they will, in the future. This year was a little strange, but I hope, I don't know if it's like certain rivalries, or that'd be kind of dope if they could fit a handful of these in throughout the year, because I like the back-to-back feel. So we'll talk about a variety of stuff as it goes down. Obviously, the Knicks just got a win. I think they lost back-to-back games, got a win over the Clippers. We'll talk a little bit about that when we're talking about Coach of the Year. So, yeah, we're going to break it all down in just a moment. If this is your first time listening to the NBA Playoff Banter podcast, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. You don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope if you don't want to. You can find this basketball podcast under the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, really across the board. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which can be found almost everywhere. Why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. It's basketball, football, baseball, boxing, everything in between. And one more thing, if you're thinking about cutting the cord, or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called AT&T TV. Plans start as low as $69 a month. Simple pricing, no hidden fees, no annual contract. Stream it anywhere on any device, and they do have the cloud DVR available. If you sign up for the choice package, that'll give you a free year of HBO Max and NBA League Pass Premium, which obviously is, it says limited time, but I'm pretty sure there's not much left of that. But a free year of HBO Max, that's AT&T TV. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host Marshall and see how he's doing. What's going on, man? How's it going with a couple more weeks left of school for you?
Not too bad. Definitely excited to go home for the summer, come up to the city, see you, see some friends, see some family. We're getting closer to having a regular lifestyle again, which is good. Also, I'm planning on going to Vegas too, which is a trip I think I need mentally for a return of normalcy and fun. I think like many other people do. But as we were just saying for the show, We got basketball playoffs coming up. Obviously, that's what we do our podcast on. Obviously, I love hockey playoffs too. Baseball's getting going. Like, this, at least things are, starting to feel normal again. And it's a good time of the year for sports. I know not everyone loves baseball, but there's games on every day. It's like everything's kind of looking up. There's no bubble. Like, it's a good time of the year for sports. And yeah, I guess my little initial starting the show rant, which I normally do, is the Western Conference is going to be, I think, a lot more wide open than we truly think compared to other years. I think in Vegas, the Lakers are probably still the money favorite to win the West. But if you look at how they've been playing, and I've seen a couple of Clipper games, like this Western Conference playoff, Chris, I mean, we could be having really entertaining first round series that we normally don't get. Because I'll say this, I'll throw it to you, we'll get going here. But the bottom half of the West is not that good of basketball teams. I've seen some games this year where Dallas looks completely abysmal. I've seen games where my Warriors play and look like complete trash. Memphis just lost a game to the frickin' Detroit Pistons, which
if
was
Memphis
beyond.
Could play the Timberwolves every time out, they'd probably be the 4 seed.
That Memphis game was just god awful, and we can get to them a little bit later. But and again, I watched the Clippers. They ended up beating Toronto, but I watched the game of them about a week ago, and the offense just looked sad. Like, there's, besides the Suns and the Jazz and the Nuggets, like, no one else in the West has really looked that good. Now, again, I'm not saying that a Kawhi or a LeBron can't flick the switch and go into playoff modes, but there's really not – it's not the deep, talented conference we've seen in the years past, because I just don't think these teams have found their level this year of playing up to expectations. So I think the West is going to be a lot more fun in the first round. There's definitely going to be some potential higher seeds being lower seeds, or an underdog winning a series compared to what we normally get.
Well, wouldn't that mean like a deeper conference though? If just that last sentence you said.
Well,
if a lower seed's going to beat upper seed, then doesn't it mean it's a little deeper?
I guess you could say that. I guess I'm just used to the teams the teams who are in the lower. I'm used to being them being a little more, I guess, just of a better watch. I mean, like, normally you look at the top 8 teams in the West, you're like, okay, like, those are 8 pretty legit squads. Like, if you went East versus West, like, it wouldn't even be a show. But again, I guess these 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 teams in the West, to me, really aren't, I guess, as good of a level of teams as I'm used to seeing in the West. I'm used to just a higher level of the conference play, and I'm amazed at just how some of these teams are really so strongly based on one player, and it just goes to show that a guy like Ja Morant or Luka Doncic really can't do everything on their own. I think that point has been kind of made really clear, and also doesn't help to wrap up this that these teams have not had the amount of rest they normally get.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
That is fair.
You're not seeing the normal NBA basketball with this series or with this schedule this year. Not only that, but their schedules or their records don't own up because they have had a lot of rest, whether it's limited minutes in the game or just taking the night off. Obviously, the Lakers, I think, I wouldn't put – go ahead and finish what you're going to say.
Okay, but I was just going to say, but the only thing is the fact that the schedule has maybe deteriorated some effort and maybe some of the viewership you can enjoy, but the schedule applies to every team. So you can't – I mean, it's like there's it's like the Memphis Grizzlies and Dallas Mavericks have played more games in a window than the Sun and the Jazz. Like, every team has had a grind of a schedule.
But did you see Memphis as the 4 seed this year, Portland as the 2 coming in? Or, I mean,
I just think when you went from watching these teams play, and again, this part is just this past month, I just expect the fact that I've been watching these teams play games and they're a playoff team. It's like you watch a team play. It's like they're going to make the playoffs. Like, there was a game this year, or Dallas has been absolutely just ran out the gym twice in the past 3 weeks against the Sacramento Kings. Like, and the Kings are the laughing stock to most people in the league. But yeah, I think this year's go to show that Dallas really, besides Luka, is not a good team. The Warriors, who so the Mavericks got embarrassed, and they play the Warriors the next night. So it's the Mavericks.
Yeah, but I mean, if they had Thompson, the Warriors would be better though.
No, true, I know, but
I mean,
for this season they
plays into it.
Yeah, but for this season they don't. But again, the Warriors are going to be a playoff team. So the night after the Dallas Mavericks get smoked by the Kings, the Dallas Mavericks lead the Golden State Warriors like 52-17. So if a night ago I was saying, man, Luka Doncic really needs help, and that's an embarrassment, what the hell does it say about my Warriors if you're losing like 52-17 to a team who got murdered by the Kings? I don't know. I guess I just expect the Western Conference to be better. And again, some of these teams need some help. Maybe it is the lots of schedules and not time to rest and everything. But yeah, I'm just the teams who are making the playoffs. Just I think there's a lot of weaknesses which we'll be able to identify. And I think it'll be, like I said, it'll be kind of a more of a crapshoot for who can advance through the first round.
Well, and once they stop playing back-to-backs, I think that'll help. Also, this has an AAU feel to it where we have seen more blowouts than normal. And it's like
true,
not just players, but coaches. If they're getting blown out and you got a back-to-back or 4 games in 6 nights, you're probably going to set your best guys on the bench and just say, live another day, dude. We got to worry about the playoffs ultimately, So I think that plays into it. But some of those teams that you mentioned, I mean, Porzingis, since he got injured, hasn't been the same player consistently at all. And maybe he is the type of player that when he's like potentially the best guy, I mean, we could say Melo was the best on that team, but was it, that 1 year they played together or whatever? It was more than that. I don't know. I don't remember. But
I have, sure.
He's never, like, maybe he needs to be the one to be consistently in it, but he's clearly not healthy or not into it, one or the other, and probably a combination of both. Like I said, you add Clay to that team, they're a higher seed. So Portland's always been kind of wishy-washy throughout these last, 4 to 8 years. Sometimes they're just sneaking in. Other times they're a higher seed. But let's talk a little bit about, we talked about the Lakers, last about 10 days ago, whatever it was, the potential that they were going to have to play, have this play-in game. And, tonight they have Phoenix. And if they lose tonight, they'll be 3 games behind the Blazers in the loss column. And Portland has the Rockets, but then they have back-to-back games against the Jazz and the Suns. So, I mean, there is still something there. But when you look at it, Marshall, LeBron, it seems like he tweaked his ankle a little bit again. Sounds like the trainers are saying it's a go, but we've seen this in professional sports where the trainers say it's a go and the player's like, dude, I'm not ready to go. Or they're thinking, ahead of, or he's thinking, I should say, like long term, like playoffs. Like, all right, dude, but what if we're gonna be a play-in, which I can understand why he's mad at the play-in, but we love it as fans, of course. Well, unless it's your team, then you're like, nah, screw this or whatever. But it's unless you're trying to get in there, right? You're the 10th team or whatever. But when you look at this, Marshall, they got a game tonight. LeBron's not going to play, I don't think. And then they have the Knicks, then Houston, then Indiana and New Orleans. And so we can look at the schedule and all that, but I'm really looking at the games. 3 games and 4 nights they got coming up. Tuesday, Wednesday, back-to-back. Now they got 2 days off. Saturday, Sunday, back-to-back. But remember, the playoffs start they get a day off, then they go right into it. If they don't win their first game, there could be more back-to-backs. So you're going to play, let's just say, theoretically, they don't win the first game. Which all they got to do as a 7th is win one and they're in. Win the first one, I should say. But imagine playing back-to-backs. So it's potential that they could play 3 back-to-backs and then have to hit the ground running right into the playoffs when they don't know if they're healthy or not. And this isn't a woe is me scenario. I'm just looking at it like, oh my gosh, so May 22nd, the playoffs start, which potentially could be May 21st is the last game. And they could potentially, if they lose that first game, be in that realm of playing 3 back-to-backs, maybe even, 3 games in a row potentially. If they lose the first game, then if they lose the second game, they got to win 2. I mean, it's a really funky way to go into the playoffs, dude. And it's kind of builds to your point of the West seems more wide open than it ever has.
Yeah, and you mentioned Rip City and Lillard, who's always fun to watch come playoff time. That's one guy I will not bitch about because he's always going to put on a show unless he is hurt.
Right, but it's all offense for teams.
Yeah, true. But at least he gives you that enjoyment of Dame time. But speaking of the Rip City, they beat the Lakers just this week, and that gives them the tiebreaker. So it's going to be super hard for the Lakers not to be 7. So that loss they had to Rip City a couple nights ago pretty much solidifies them being a 7 seed. Not entirely, but you also got to think that the Suns are not slowing down for anyone. They've been on a freaking a hot streak all year. So you would assume, Chris, the Lakers lose tonight, and now you have about 4 or 5 games left in the season. And unless Portland, who's been on a hot streak too of late, falls apart, Lakers are going to have to probably play Curry on a given night. Which, hey, for one given night, if the dude drops 50 and Draymond's playing, you never know. But again, now in fairness, let's look at this in 2 ways. From one way, from an NBA standpoint, this is a awful situation for the NBA, just from the Adam Silver's office, because you do not want the Lakers
LA, New York, what you want.
Yes, you do not want the Lakers to get bounced out first round. But hey, again, I could honestly give 2 shits if Stephen Curry drops 50 and LeBron packs his bags, so what? And honestly, for LeBron,
but that wouldn't do it, Marshall. That wouldn't just do it. That would just get Golden State in. LA would still play the other team.
Well, yeah, okay. So let's say Ja Morant gets on steroids and he has a health. Whatever. Okay, let's say they do lose. You're right. They lose their 7-8 game, then they happen to lose to the 9 or 10 seed, and they get bounced out. From an NBA standpoint and TV ratings, that would definitely suck. But a point that anyone would pretty much make, and again, LeBron said he was anti this play and stuff a couple years ago, so I'm not going to hop on this thing of ripping on him for not liking it now, but again.
Well, why would he like it? Why would he?
Sure.
Of course he's not going to like it, but fans like it.
And it's not just LeBron. I don't think many players in the league like this. Yeah.
The only people that like it are Memphis and San Antonio right now, or Golden State potentially, because they're only a half game behind. Those are the people that like it because they got to shoot, they got a chance.
But from the standpoint of, okay, let's forget about ratings. Just don't be the 7 seed. I just went through an opening
rant. But they have had some injuries. I mean, you're talking about the Lakers lately like they haven't had these major injuries.
No, I'm just saying. But if the injuries happen though, it's just
but every team's built differently though. When you have 2 of the top 5, top 8 players, you're going to build your team differently. So this whole kicking them around like they're a garbage squad, not garbage, I'll take that back, but like they didn't have either of them for a while. You're telling me that team was supposed to win all these games with neither of them?
No, but I'm just saying.
I don't know. They're playing some tough matchups too.
They have, but from my fan standpoint, if you're the 7 seed, I don't mind that team having to, suck it up and win a game. I don't, from a competitive standpoint, just if you're looking at just the way the format is set up.
Well, yeah, we know that.
Yeah, it might suck, but hey, you are the 7 seed for whatever reason you're there.
Well, we know why. That's what I'm saying, Marshall. Don't act like it's just some kind of, I don't know, man. They just can't get it together this year. They were doing damn good before they got hurt. Am I right there?
Yes. Now
they were cruising.
let me ask you this, and we can kind of keep moving in
They
the
were
West or
cruising,
whatever.
though, right? They were cruising.
True.
Okay.
Now, do you think there's time for them to catch back up, or is this just going to be kind of a we got to really hope that we, or like, do you think there's going to be
do they get the
LeBron?
6? You saying
No,
catch up?
I'm just saying. Do you think they have enough time to kind of refine that mojo, or is it going to be kind of just a complete a 50-50 coin flip for if we think the Lakers are going to be able to make it into the first true round of the playoffs?
I think they'll make it in the first true round because
Okay.
they have the advantage. They can just win one game. If they lose, they got to get beat twice.
True.
So, that helps them a lot. But, we'll see. We got to see it. It's hard to say. LeBron could be missing these games because he knows his body's going to feel great and he'll spaz out, And so all he got to do is get in. Even if they got in the A seed, is Utah like, man, who we want to play the first round? Or Phoenix. Who we want to play the first round? A guy coming back that feels pretty good now because he got to, it's tough to say, man. I got to see it on the court. But that's why I brought it up because we're past the yellow flag is the point.
So let me add this because I've heard this debated on a bunch of different shows. I actually think this is fun. How would you feel if after the play-in situation's over and the two teams have been selected, whoever it is, if the number one seed could pick which team they wanted to place? No?
No.
Oh, okay.
They already got the number one seed. They got the through the West, they got the home court advantage. I don't know. I'm good on that.
Okay, fair enough.
Would I be mad if they did it? No, I wouldn't. Because it could potentially some years spark a rivalry or something. But I don't. I think it's like I said. If they put it in, I wouldn't be out here ranting about it. But then again, you know what I mean. It's interesting though. I wouldn't be against it.
So I guess we obviously, if LeBron gets going, like the guy's special, he's a freak. I'm with you. It's probably gonna get going. I will say I have, and again, I do not watch the Clippers play that much, but we're talking about the two LA teams because once the playoffs start, the other LA team is probably going to be the other favorite. Now, again, I know the seedings, like the Clippers can't be a 1 or 2 seed, but from a Vegas gambling standpoint, they probably will be the first or second favorite to win the West after LeBron or something like that. From the limited games I've seen them play, it doesn't quite look like they've still found their mojo, or maybe I found them on some off nights. And even just with the box scores, the way they play, like, I don't know, Zubac there's something about that team where I feel, Chris, after last year, you felt with the coaching change and a little bit of reshuffling of their roster that we were going to be getting a better team, especially after I believe Paul George said, I'm going to put these guys on my back and make us better next year. I don't feel like we have a better Clipper team. I feel like they've gone a little bit backwards, or maybe they're just not in the best rhythm as of late. But if I was a Clippers fan, I would be more nervous this season than I was last season. What do you think about that?
What were they the seed last year going in?
They had to have been. I want to say 2 or 3.
Right.
So, so
they're pretty close to that.
Yes, I just think the style of play and just seems like they're not as good of a team from what I've seen.
But coming in, it looked like they were, and then they fell flat in the bubble. So that can work both ways. The Denver game, you can look to and say Denver played damn good, and the Clippers underachieved in that one. The Suns game, Leonard didn't play. Did he play against New Orleans? I can't remember, but it's tough, man. This year is a weird year, so I think that on one hand, can we take a lot from some items here and say, well, that's a yellow flag, that's a yellow flag? Yeah. Inexperience as a unit is a yellow flag going into the playoffs too, which some of these teams have that as well, which I think we may be undervaluing.
True.
But like a Phoenix per se. But I think they're still pretty good, man. I mean, they've ran into some funk. They're like 6-4 in the last 10. They still are pretty damn good defensively. They still got a lot of players that, they still got, one of the top players. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like I can't be that hard on them in this season, when they're going to be the third seed, or maybe, I'm assuming. Maybe not, though. Maybe they won't. Yeah, I mean, that's the fun thing about this year is it is up in the air, man. It is up in the air. I mean, how much, for instance, just to kind of parlay this to this, what about these Brooklyn? Now, Harden wasn't there. We know that. And they've only played a handful of games together all together, the big three. But these back-to-back games with Brooklyn in Milwaukee had that playoff atmosphere. Giannis he was 4 of 8 in that first game, went for like 40-something, 49. Durant had 42. That was a hell of a game. And then Giannis, Holiday, and Forbes all hit 4 threes. But those back-to-back victories are one of those where you go, should we now put some weight on that then? Because this just happened. We were just talking about, well, Milwaukee's got to prove it. That's true, but don't these other teams that are on top of the West have to prove it too? Not just the Clippers? I know they have, such a – Leonard's obviously a stud, and we'll see if playoff P could actually be that. I think he's had a pretty damn good season, though. I'll say that. We'll see, though, in the playoffs. But should we look into those games then too? Because Milwaukee just beat Brooklyn back-to-back in a playoff vibe.
Well, I think, I think what could be a really fun matchup, and especially if you watch them today, the Heat put on a master class in that first half against Boston. They scored 78 points. And the Heat are right now, they're the 6th seed. And it's between
another underachieving team right there.
Oh, yeah.
But they could make noise for sure.
Oh, yeah. If we're gonna say, I know I've been pretty negative on every team this show, and the Heat have had a shitty year for their standards.
Who do you like this year? Do you like a team or no?
I can also say I think the most consistent team this whole year has been the Suns. They've not had, in Utah, those have been the two most consistent teams who, on a night in, night out, I watch them play. Whether I bet on them or whatever reason, they seem to be the most two solid teams all year. But the only thing is they do not have the certain. I can't even say they don't have high market names
too.
But they don't have the Hall of Fame future players we're used to seeing. But that doesn't mean they couldn't do it. But to flip back to the East Coast, obviously I did see that Atlanta and Miami are super close. I think I don't know who has the tiebreaker, but if Miami is a 6th seed and Miami gets to play Brooklyn, because as you just said, Brooklyn obviously is not going to have the tiebreaker against Milwaukee. A Miami-Brooklyn net first game series, dude, damn, sign me up for that, Chris. You want to talk about like a really fun first series to watch? And I'll say this, I guess for my Brooklyn standpoint, last show I ripped on the Philly because they've always had a certain, just ever since they went tank mode and got the people, they've always had a little bit of hype and they've never done it. Okay, and that's fair. Like I'm sure Philly fans, are we going to make the conference finals or make the NBA championship? So Philly's not trustworthy.
But they've been consistent this year, right?
They have had a nice consistent year. So it's like, you know what? You've had another good year. So do it in the playoffs. Milwaukee, again, that team, they always have a good, consistent regular season. But then come playoff times, they're
money in the regular season, dude. I mean, you could probably look at the last 3 years, and they got probably the best record, maybe.
But I guess the one unknown is, okay, what is Brooklyn? Like, that you do have 3 of the best scorers in NBA history.
140 points is what they are. That's maybe give up 142. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I guess for them, I will give them a bit of I can't rip them. And you just let's see what they do. Will this team develop? And I would say one of the biggest factors that people probably don't think about much is that, well, what's Steve Nash going to do? Like, this dude's a first-year coach. You got 3 guys who all love to have the ball. And I think there's going to be actually a ton of pressure on him. So I think that would make it even more enjoyable if it was against Spoelstra, who is one of the best coaches of all time. So that would be, Chris, that'd be a great matchup because the Heat are more of a defensive-based team, and Brooklyn's going to be like, okay, hopefully, I'm assuming they're probably giving Harden the same type of treatment plan like LeBron, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I agree.
Harden doesn't want to come back. Like, obviously, the Nets
we
are
already
in the playoffs.
saw what he can do. Let's fucking make sure he's good. And he was being a stud, by the way.
But I guess the one thing is that does Nash have a routine down of what to do? Because I believe,
can he block shots? Because if he can't block shots, they're gonna have problems.
Well, and they don't have any bigs.
That's the whole point. Rim protector.
Yeah, so
rebounding.
Yeah. You know? I thought, and I love the guy. We talked about this last week. I thought losing LaMarcus Aldridge was a huge blow. Not that he's a defensive guru, but
no.
he's a solid. He's a solid big with Blake Griffin. Like, LA, he's a solid player. But now you go from, well, there's just Blake Griffin. And DeAndre Jordan really is kind of seeming to be a cast off this year just because you don't mention his name as much anymore. Maybe they probably should have found a way to reconfigure it and hold on to Jared Allen. I mean, obviously, I don't know all the trade details.
Yeah, I don't know if that was possible, but it would have been nice.
But I guess I could easily see people in Vegas saying, hey, I'm going to bet the Nets to win the East, and you could easily cash your ticket. But, again, if they got to play Miami round 1, all of a sudden, okay, we have a offensive loaded team, but you don't have a routine down yet for how you're going to work minutes. And are they truly most effective when all 3 players are on the court in a playoff setting? I know it would sound kind of stupid to be like, well, Marshall, what the hell are you talking about? Like, but are you getting the most out of your team with all 3 together for a majority of the game, or are you better off subbing guys in and out and giving them that's something where to give Nash a break, like normally a regular season, a coach would have that routine down. Like, okay, like
that's
let's say,
good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one thing I've learned. Well, that's one thing you and I have just learned from years of watching basketball, like a little more higher level than just like a regular guy going to a bar. Like, coaches have routines. Like, okay, 3 minutes left in the first quarter, KD's coming out. Whether they're up 12 or down 12, and then you're putting in Harden, okay? But Nash hasn't done that because they've only played 7 games together all year. So the only thing normally you would say, hey, it's their first year, like they'll probably be back next year. But I do think with the amount of talent they do have offensively, you could maybe have to do it. I know we don't have a routine yet, but let's just try and outscore everyone. And maybe that could get you a long playoff run, Chris. But man, if you are Brooklyn, you got to be praying that the Heat keep winning and that you get to play Trae Young, because Atlanta versus Brooklyn is probably a pretty favorable matchup for the Nets or the Bucks. But I really doubt the Nets or the Bucks want to get a playoff Miami team. So
a playoff Jimmy.
Yeah, playoff Jimmy. And again, they put on a show today. What do you? I mean, I know this is a complete open-ended question, but if you had to, we did this with the Clemson we did this with the Gonzaga and Baylor situation for picking it before the brackets came out. If you had $100 as of today, would you bet $100 at the Nets?
See how he does this to me? He can't just text me this an hour before the show. He's got to just throw some shit at me. Okay, go ahead.
If you had 100, and I'll give you 3-1 odds. You throw 3-1. Would you bet $100 on 3-1 odds that the Nets win the East, or would you take the rest of the East for even money? So you could win $300 if the Nets win the East, or bet $100 if they don't.
Without the time to think about it, or doing a little research on Harden and seeing how he's minorly doing, I'd go with the Nets. I'd still go with the Nets right now. Go the Nets right now. Okay,
fair enough.
So go ahead. What would you do?
I would take the field. I think that they're going to run into, whether it be Miami or Philly, or hell, maybe a team. Maybe this could be the time that Milwaukee finally does step it up. I think that just if the fact they've not played together enough, is just gonna sting them. But
Right.
So yeah, it
Okay.
will be a lot of fun.
Right. Okay. So Steph went for 11 3-pointers last night. He had 49 points in 29 minutes, if I got that right. He has the most career games with 11 threes. That's 12. The closest is 4 this season. That's Steph. No, the closest is 2 of those, Clay and Lillard. So that's pretty good. This season he has 26 30-point games, 6 40s, 3 50s, and 160. So that's pretty good. We talked about him a little bit last show. So I wanted to say, hey, he's still balling out. But let's not forget about Oscar Robertson. I mean, Russ Westbrook. No, let's calm down. But this dude, I mean, he just tied 181 triple doubles. Dude's going off. He hit the 2 free throws to win the game last night against the Pacers. 33, 19 boards and 15 assists. It's just love him, hate him, whatever. This dude is a monster when it comes to this stuff. Thinking about Oscar Robinson though, dude, he has 6 seasons of triple doubles with 30-point triple doubles, which is crazy. Averaging 30 points in a triple double. That's nuts. Only player in the top 10. He's 10th in scoring and 3rd in assist. Just kind of throwing out there. But yeah, I mean, dude, what Russ is doing is crazy. The Knicks beat the Clippers. Julius Randle hit, I think, 2 or 3 clutch shots down the stretch. Rose goes off, 25 points and 11. They're 6 and 13 without Rose coming off the bench. Just putting that out there. This is the first time they beat the Clippers in LA since 2010, and they are 3 games ahead in the 7th seed with 4 games to go. Should Thibodeau be the coach of the year, or does it come down to if Phoenix wins the West?
I think that due to the fact he's in New York City, that gives him the edge over Monty Williams. I think both have done tremendous. And I also think the fact that the Knicks have done jack shit for the past, since Allen Houston was there, I would pretty much say, really makes it just that more like of a glorified job. I think either coach deserves it. I think if you look at what the Suns did, the way they went, like they had their 9-1 or 10-0 bubble run last year, and now you can legit win the 1 seed. And again, I know I ripped the West, but I still think the West is better than the East this year. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of coaching. It's insane. Obviously, Chris Paul was one of the smartest moves we've seen in the past 5 years for a team making an acquisition. But New York City, Knicks, people love them. It's the team. I mean, obviously the writers vote for this kind of stuff. I just think there's too much going on with the name of the team and where they're located that gives it to Tibbs. I would go 1A, 1B. I would personally vote Tibbs, but it's a 50-50 kind of thing. I just think New York City is way too much to keep Monty Williams from winning the award.
And the Suns were turning the corner last year, added Paul and some other defensive guys. Whereas, like you said, I mean, geez, and Tibbs, the problem is Tibbs he's too old to coach in this league. I mean, that's what everybody locally was saying. Too old, he can't coach. It's just a bad system, even though it got us to the playoffs. I'm talking about the Timberwolves for the first time in like 12 years.
But shit, I'll say this, Chris, one thing. I bet if you ask the regular NBA Joe fan, okay, who plays for the Knicks? People this year would say Julius Randle. After that, at a bar conversation, you're not going to have many more answers. I mean, the Suns got Aiton's becoming a good player. Chris Paul is a stud. Devin Booker's been a stud. Like, they got Cameron Payne, they got Cam Johnson. They actually have a pretty good squad. The Knicks got Julius Randle, who's transformed into a beast. Derrick Rose is on like his 5th life of being a cat. And after that, you're like, so, if we're talking a true coaching job, to forget about what city you're in, Tibbs is putting together a hell of a season for a bunch of guys that probably were not getting drafted in many fantasy basketball leagues.
Yeah, it's grittiness, baby. It's grittiness. How about Jokic for the MVP? You said Steph. I was talking Embiid. We mentioned Jokic a little bit. Should he win it? I mean, damn. Would they be the number one seed potentially if they hadn't lost Murray?
From the variety of writers and people I listen to, it seems to be the consensus seems to be that writers like Jokic to win the MVP. I mean, if you look at his points per game, I was talking to my buddy about this yesterday. Karl Anthony Towns and Jokic pretty much average the same amount of rebounds and points per game, but then you have Karl Anthony Towns has 4.8 assists a game. Jokic has the 9. I think the thing that
couple
people
more
love,
years, baby, in this system, and he's going to be up in there 7-8.
Yeah, and I mentioned that because that seems to be the over the top little notch for him is the fact that he averages so many assists. He's one of the best big passers of all time. I mean, you can't ignore it. I mean, the numbers are there.
Yeah. And they maybe finish better down the stretch potentially if they had their second guy.
True. I mean, and their record is much better. Obviously, he has much more talent work than the Golden State does too. And
Embiid's a better defender. I'll say that. Of course.
Yeah. So I do think that he's gonna win it. I don't quite get why it's such. From again, just the Marshall Rorty consensus. I think a lot of people think it's like unanimous for him, and I just don't see that because I do think that you got to look at what Curry has done with the lack of talent he's had. And you got to look at what Embiid has done because Embiid's numbers are pretty marvelous too. I don't have an issue with him winning it this year. I just don't quite get why it seems to be, for the most part, almost like a one-horse race when I think that Curry or Embiid could have won it too, and it wouldn't be like a massive slap in the face to Jokic either. I think the love over the top is a bit much. But maybe we're just not used to, Chris, of seeing a guy, a big, with the pass numbers he does have. Now, I will say people brag about three-point shooting. Well, if we're going to talk about three-point shooting, the dude, I looked it up, he shoots 4 threes a game. And, okay, he'll hit 2 or 3. Sure, that's a great clip. But if you want to bring in shooting, like, okay, cool. Like, Steph shoots about 13 threes a game and hits 7. So it depends kind of where, and you can do this for any sport.
Yeah, and you can rank where they're at, too. Yeah. And you're not going to get an MVP being, it's tougher to get an MVP when you're not. I mean, it happens, though, but usually it's the all-purpose game. That gets you, like Westbrook or whatever. It's hard to be the ace seed and get the MVP. You know what I mean?
Completely fair. Yes, sir. So, yeah, I think Jokic wins it. I just hope that I think it should be a closer vote than a unanimous award for him. That's my
just screw Embiid, huh? Just go right to Curry? Just right to Curry. They're the number one seed over there. Just right to Curry. Yeah, he's the better player than both those guys when he's on defensively too.
Yes, I won't argue that at all.
Just screw Embiid, man. No, just kidding. All right. Any last words, sir? By the way, real quick, Jokic was on the bench when the guy Chris Finch, who's coaching the Timberwolves now, he was the mastermind mostly about their offense, when he was working there. And he said, we're bringing Jokic in the starting lineup. We're going to run the whole thing through him. They're doing that with Towns. They don't even have the whole system in. But next year, dude, I think Towns will be like 6 assists or something like that. Sorry, just had to get some positivity for my Timberwolves. Any last words, sir? You close us down either way.
I will just say, if you've not seen the Wizards play, be ready for a really fun playing game. And, I know you gave Westbrook the props he deserves, which he definitely does. And Beal's been having an incredible year too. Not quite the assist numbers and rebound numbers that Westbrook has, but the scoring has been fun. They're a super fun team to watch. And I by no means do I think that they could upset the Nets or like the Bucks or something. I just think they're too bad of a defensive team. But for a play-in game where they could potentially knock out a seed or at least maybe scare a team, I mean, the over-unders, if it was Brooklyn to play Washington on a given night, it's going to be like over-under 245 every night, which is going to be, unless you're an X's and O's defensive guy, it's going to be an incredible series. But look forward to watching the playing game for Washington D.C. They're a fun team to watch. Beal, it's just Westbrook and Beal just kind of feed off each other, and they just run down the court, and they score a ton of points. And to talk about teams who've had a tough year, they probably had the toughest year out of anyone because they started off awful. Westbrook was dinged up, and they had like that 2-week COVID break, which they had the longest.
Yeah, the longest.
COVID.
Right. Toronto, I think, had it early, but you're right. Washington beat them.
So I know this ain't going to be a coach of the year, but I mean, just for what the coaching staff and the team has done for Washington, that is a hell of a season. I mean,
one more thing.
Sure.
A couple days back, I think it was, Westbrook took 8 shots in a game, which that might be a record of least shots, but he only had 14 points. Dude got 24 assists, career high, and 21 rebounds, another career high. I mean, years ago, we had plenty to say about him when when him and Durant were together and all that, no doubt about it. But golly, this dude.
I know, and that's why I've kind of enjoyed him more. I never really liked him at OKC, but man, just him and Beal, that is just it's been a really, really, really fun team to watch. Yeah. So, and again, I know that some teams are going to get screwed. There's going to be some team this year that's going to thought they had the playoffs set up and they might get bounced out by the 9 or the 10. But from a fan standpoint, that'll be a lot of fun. And like Chris and I said, next week we'll know what's going on. Again, if you are Brooklyn or if you are the Bucks, you got to start cheering for Atlanta. I just guarantee those teams are, especially if you're the Bucks, you're like, really? We're having a good year again. Now we got to play that freaking Miami team. I guarantee that's the last team that team wants to freaking play. They'd much rather have a Antetokounmpo match up against Trae Young than Jimmy Butler and the Heat walking back into Milwaukee. So I might have to bet the Heat again this year to try to make some money like my best friend did with them last year. So until next week, enjoy watching basketball. The season's over at the end of next week, so we have one more week of regular season ball to enjoy, and then we get to enjoy the play and setup, which will be a lot of fun. As always, Chris and I appreciate your support. We hope that everyone's starting to enjoy more of a regular life again, and the boys are out tonight. Peace.